Morena tātou. I've been involved in infrastructure for 40 years, so yours is a field in which I feel more than qualified to talk about. I've designed roads, I've built roads, I've owned roads, and I've sold roads. So you can't really bluff me. I've rescued Vector and Transpower from major failures, and while as chair of Auckland DHB, the biggest hospital in New Zealand was completed on time and on budget, the only one that has been. I'm still developing and owning commercial buildings. I had a look into Infrastructure New Zealand and the Infrastructure Commission to clarify their roles. The Commission appears to be a government advisory board, and you guys are the ones making money from infrastructure by designing it and building it. In that case, as Mayor of a third of New Zealand, I'm the second biggest customer behind the last speaker, Minister Brown. Incidentally, I just, for the first time, heard the new ways of raising money, and they seem quite sensible to me. Looking through your membership, I have personally used some of you, avoided some of you, and via council are aware of some of you. In general, I haven't formed a particularly good view of you as a group. As in my experience, you are too costly and too slow. You need to change, or the lure of Chinese contractors will defeat you. Incidentally, there's not many Chinese here in this room. Last week I spoke to the New Zealand-China Building Conference, an even larger audience, and they really are part of this sector. The government goes on about councils wasting money, which is a bit rich considering the following shockers. The Pūhoi to Warkworth motorway is a gold-plated, disgraceful waste of money which should have paid for a more modest motorway well past Wilford and probably over the Brynderwyns. City Rail Link, which council shares 50% of the costs in, and I acknowledge Sean Sweeney's manfully tried to get it going. We share 50% of the cost of that with central government. It's a good project, but it's way over time and way over budget. Dunedin Hospital spend is an outrage. There are many in Dunedin Hospital. Someone told me it's gone above 1.6 billion, it's now 2-point-something billion. If you'd offered the people in Dunedin the old hospital plus a new Ford Ranger, most of them would have taken the Ford Ranger. There are many more examples, including the fortune being spent on needless seismic strengthening in Auckland. The culprits include some senior companies here. There needs to be a fresh approach, copying smaller developers, like my one and others, who simply don't have cost overruns. The first thing in any infrastructure project is to ask and know, what is the problem we are solving? Then, what is the value of solving it? And that will lead you to how much we can spend on it. The funding problem is made easier by doing things cheaper, as well as better, faster and cheaper. Sadly, in most cases, the design comes first, and we end up with over-specified projects, as Sean Sweeney stated, followed by naive contracts full of legalese and not much businessese. Okay, NZTA had unreasonable design specifications for the Pūhoi to Warkworth section, but did any of you say, that's too much? Can we do it better and cheaper, faster? Or do you just sign up and take the money? The city rail link stations, when you get into those, they're like cathedrals. You're just catching a train. There's no ceiling up here. None of you have noticed. The downtrodden people. There are beautiful ceilings through that. Completely unnecessary. They might suit a city of 10 million, not 1.8 million. The worst waste of money, if it ever gets started, is the idiotic Cross Harbour Tunnel, still being funded by government. This will cost twice what Fonterra's worth and just joins one traffic jam to another traffic jam, when there are obvious, much cheaper and better solutions. And this is my city. But the government has already wasted $40 million on investigating it, and they haven't even looked at the more obvious route. Meola Reef goes 60% across the harbour, and a short bridge to the new area, which could be the first actual example of value uplift. To capture value uplift, you have to own the land. I've captured a lot of it. In this case, it goes to land owned by the government and underutilised. The cost would be less than 8% of the proposed tunnels and be of much more benefit. And just to remind you of this, you've all been to cities with rivers, in London and Paris and other countries like that. When the first bridge got overcapacitated, they didn't build another one beside it or make it wider. They built another one further along. National ticketing is going to cost around $1 billion. Why do we need it? Auckland's AT Hop card is going open loop later this year, so you can use your Visa card. More wasted cash. There's much talk about bipartisanship, but this should actually not be between political parties, but between government and councils. Councils, surprisingly enough, like them or don't like them, are more stable. In my case, I took over from a mayor who's ideologically opposed to just about everything I stand for, but we still haven't changed the hell as much as I want, because you have a tail of councillors with you. Now back to Auckland Council. We just had the lowest rates of any metro centre in New Zealand, and second lowest in the country after Far North. My last fix-up job, whose former deputy mayor is sitting in front of me actually. This is despite me inheriting a $375 million budget hole on day one. I was elected on 5 key priorities, and these have been my relentless focus and will continue to be. Number 1, stop wasting money. Number 2, finish the big infrastructure projects. Number 3, take back control of the council organisations, vaguely council-controlled organisations. Get Auckland moving and make the most of our waterfront. I'm getting on with it, but there's still a lot to do, and some of it is going to require parliamentary help. Taking back control. Council-controlled organisations spend $2 billion of ratepayer money. That's about half of our operating budget. But how much control do we really have? In the case of Auckland Transport, CCO is a misnomer. AT was set up to operate independently from council and given enormous power. The only power we have is to write letters and ask them nicely to do things. We can change the board, and I'm doing that. In fact, later today, if councillors agree, we'll be appointing Maurice Williamson to the board of AT. He's going to get stuck in, but Maurice and I agree that the real problem with AT goes much deeper than that, much deeper than who's on the board. AT simply has too much power. I'm fed up with it, and I know the public are overwhelmingly on my side. Aucklanders want their democratically elected mayor and council to be in control, and that's why I've called upon the government to revoke AT's legal status and give us full control. And as you heard from the previous speaker, we get on quite well, and he sounds like he's doing that. So let's decide how AT operates and what its role is from now on. Minister, if you're still here, don't let the MOT slow you down. The Auckland deal. As the Mayor of Auckland, I lead the largest council in Australasia. We're a third of the population and 40% of the GDP. Wellington takes $45 billion of tax from Auckland households and businesses every year. That doesn't include all the other revenue they get from charging fees and selling things like electricity, and the government doesn't even pay rates. I believe when you add it all up, we put more into Treasury coffers than we get back. Auckland's subsidising the rest of the country. What's good for Auckland is good for New Zealand, but Auckland's solutions are needed for Auckland problems. I'm pleased to say the government's starting to listen. That's how I was able to negotiate the Auckland solution to the Three Waters problem. A lot of people said it couldn't be done, but we came up with a model that will keep water affordable and leave Aucklanders in control. It's time we now applied that thinking to other areas. Transport is top of mind for Aucklanders and is the issue that frustrates us most about living in this city. If New Zealand is to reap the economic benefits from future growth, then we need to be a world-class city. That means having traffic flow seamlessly through our motorway network and arterial roads, not just for the sake of moving people, but moving goods too. Millions of tonnes of freight are moved through Auckland every year. My proposal for Auckland's 10-year plan, I outlined top priorities for transport were: complete the existing transport times on time and on budget, ensuring road renewals and maintenance are properly funded so we avoid potholes, halt low priority initiatives that are not yet underway, achieving significant gains in network performance through smaller scale improvements, making public transport faster, more reliable and easy to use with more technology, progress work on affordable rapid transit projects that Auckland needs. I strongly believe Auckland needs to get back to basic approach to transport. We need to fixing small issues that frustrate us all. Think potholes, but inefficient traffic lights, excessive temporary traffic management, and slow and unreliable buses. There are many opportunities to make low cost and quick changes here. Technology is a big part to play. I have to say AT are getting on board, but there's a lack of sense of urgency. However, Auckland has fallen behind in recent years, and we need to catch up to the leading cities of the world. There are many opportunities. Our traffic lights need to get much faster and respond to changing traffic flows. AT have started to make good progress on the three areas, which I'm pleased with, which are dynamic lanes, bus transponders, and detection cameras. I do want to see them go harder and faster with the rollout so Aucklanders can start to feel their commutes are getting better instead of worse. The integrated transport plan. Auckland will still need to deliver major transport projects for our city, but we need to be very careful about which projects get pushed forward. As Alan Bollard noted, there is a natural tendency to pre-announce glossy projects before business cases have been done, but we can now document how costly this is. In Australia, 33% of the projects announced without business cases accounted for 79% of the cost overruns. That's why I'm very pleased the government has agreed to work together on an integrated transport plan for Auckland, but it's happening too slowly. When I came into office, it was clear the system was broken. Projects worth tens of billions were starting up everywhere, none of them controlled by council. No one was counting the cost or thinking how much of these projects would be delivered concurrently. And the industry didn't believe many of these projects would ever happen, and they were right. Work the council has undertaken has found that there is a $100 billion gap between funding and costs of transport projects from all agencies over the next 30 years. This is likely to be significant. There's likely to be a significant underestimate of the given inflationary pressures that will be created. The government's cut a few projects that have got out of control. Tunnelled light rail, I thank them for that. But in France, they can do light rail for $51 million per kilometre. And I've visited a brand new one in the city of Angers. Here we were looking at a cost per kilogram many times of that. And then that's even before they had the idea of sticking it underground. But we still need to build a rapid transit network to the airport, so we can't bank all of those as cost savings. I should note that all these projects went through extensive and indeed very expensive business case processes. Some of you benefited. You probably should be ashamed. Astonishingly enough, NZTA spent nearly $200 million on business cases in the last 3 years. And this doesn't even count light rail. The government says don't waste money, so I'm saying stop making dumb decisions in Wellington. The current business case seems to result in the most expensive and oversized projects being chosen. possibly out of consultant self-interest. But this isn't good for our city, or even really for the industry, because it results in projects being assessed in isolation. Auckland needs a credible 30-year plan for transport investment. We're not served well by the cycle of political parties announcing projects from the meagre resources of opposition, probably because they poll well, and sticking blindly to their plans once in government. I also want to send a warning that there's no magic money tree to fund all these projects worth tens of billions. I know we should be looking at new funding and financing projects, and there are some interesting options here, but make them cheaper. This is not a rich country like China, for example. I'm not ideological. I don't care who owns, builds or finances the projects. I just want the best outcome for the ratepayer and taxpayer who are paying for them. Now, time of use charging. There is no need for a national framework. It's probably only likely to happen in Auckland in the foreseeable future. And we're already using this. We have time of use charging here already. At the port, trucks pay a lot more to pick up loads and deliver them during the day. And you didn't even notice. Auckland suffers from terrible congestion problem, estimated to be a cost over $1 billion a year. Time of use charging has the potential to free us from the increasingly crippling congestion that plagues our busiest sections of motorway network and arterial roads. Has anyone noticed? Doesn't seem to be much congestion in school holidays. We only have to knock about 10% off the road and they run better. Time of use charging was probably only going to be needed here, so there's no need for a national framework. Other areas can copy Auckland in the future if there is a need. There's also no need for NZTA to be involved, given their cost-spend record. I thank the government for finally taking leadership with their announcement that they'll be introducing legislation to allow time of use charging by the scheme by the end of this year. And I also thank the ACT Party for keeping it on the agenda in the coalition agreement. But I also noticed that Labor was ready to go. So why is it taking so long, and why is there no room for trialling? We have to have laws before we can even trial something to see if it actually works. Aucklanders tell me that congestion is the biggest hassle in their lives and the worst part of living in Auckland. Time of use charging offers an opportunity to significantly improve the functioning of our road network at very little cost, compared to the cost of widening motorways and digging tunnels. As I say, we're already doing it on the wharves. Why not on the land? It's not that hard. Building rules. Last bit. If Auckland's to be globally competitive, we need to build things faster. Auckland's seismic rules are rubbish. We have volcanoes here. Wellington has earthquakes. Not enough of them. So why do we have seismic rules, same as them? There's no place for it here. Building rules are costing everyone in this room money. I was with a central city developer last week who's wasted $2 million in earthquake-proofing a building that is a rock-solid concrete one. I looked at the design. The building has to collapse for these improvements to help. I'm going to take some of the people who design it and show them, and they're going to explain to me apologise. It's ridiculous. Well, I'm sure our steel fabricators aren't complaining about this work. It's delaying projects, causing mass inefficiencies, bumping up prices and delaying a pipeline of work. I again acknowledge the government for hearing our concern and setting up a panel to looking at changing these rules. Get on with it. I suggest they look faster so everyone can stop wasting money sooner. Greater regulatory efficiency is something I'm trying to push through Council. The less time our Council is involved in your project, the quicker your project can progress. Council's superpower is its bureaucracy, and I'm trying to get them to do less of it. So in closing, New Zealand has one of the most centralised governments in the world. For all the chatter about localism and regional deals, there's still a Wellington knows best attitude. It's changing under the coalition, but not fast enough. Auckland's ready to go. As Winston Churchill said, give us the tools and we'll finish the job. That's it, folks.